Welcome to world-famous Sydney Harbour as the Schneider 49er series has moved to regatta number 3. We've been in Perth, we've been in Brisbane, and Adam Bieshel was the leading skipper after those first 2 regattas. But here in Sydney, we have all of the top Olympic crews, skippers from 13 nations, and so far in the first 2 races, it's been very hectic, and we've really had that Olympic fever. So stand by for races 3 and 4 here in the Sydney International Regatta.
The manoeuvres in these boats are absolutely crucial. You come into the bottom mark or a top mark, especially in a gate, you've got lots of pressure on, you're coming in on ley lines, everything's got to be perfect. The boats are all the same, everyone's in the same boat. You can't just give anyone an inch because they'll just climb up the inside of you or get an overlap and all of a sudden there's 5 boats gone just like that.
Well, the man who's not conceding anyone an inch is Adam Bieshel from Australia. Smith's Kodak Express out in the lead. Morgan Larson, USA second. Skilled Chris Nicholson third. Marc Ardenneau of France in 4th place. Fresh conditions for race 3.
And the course, 900 metres top to bottom. They set their spinnakers and come down the course. A choice of 2 marks at the bottom. They work their way back up to the top. The number of laps depended on the breeze and their spinnaker run to the finish.
And it's really piping in from the northeast here on Sydney Harbour, and with me is 3-time world 18-foot skiff champion Rob Brown.
Certainly is the breeze up around 18 knots. Boats jockeying for positions. Adam Bieshel talks about boat control, and this is where you need it coming into the start. You've got to avoid any contact with another skiff, and your timing has to be dead spot on as you hit the line as the gun goes.
And the Boyd brothers at the top end, the pin end of the line. Silent Night Beds in the middle, so to Adam Bieshel, the yellow mainsail there in the middle.
Looks like it was a clear start. Adam Bieshel in the middle of the line, the yellow stripe, and here's the Great Britain crew, the Budgeon brothers, coming out on port tack, and a very bad start by Chris Nicholson.
Okay, the wind has freshened in a bit for this race. It's lifted to 16, 17, 18 knots. You probably saw quite a bad start there by Chris Nicholson. It'll be interesting to see where he comes up to. And also the English did a superb port hand start. That's a very risky move. It's like having all the rules going against you. So it's very dangerous, but when it works really well.
The tide not quite as strong, but still very choppy conditions out on Sydney Harbour.
And there's the Finns, Risto Tapper and Jokka Pyrinen. Sail number 566. 215 there is Hugh Stoddart. And sail number 216 is Michael Coxon and Aaron Lex.
And here we have the skiffs all coming across on port tack. So the breeze looks like it's fairly consistent down the middle of the course. No major wind shifts, but certainly the skiffs that went out to the left-hand side, which is favoured in previous races, looks like the breeze might have come slightly back to the middle of the course and fairly even at this point in time.
So Chris Nicholson in skilled, with 2 fourths in the opening 2 races, looking to go a lot better in this 3rd race. He'll need to.
He certainly has trouble getting out of the starting blocks, which is quite uncharacteristic for Chris, and certainly in this calibre of fleet you can't afford to be back in the mob so early in the race.
So we have converging yachts now. The skiffs on port tack don't have right of way over the starboard tackers.
And this is the situation. You have 2 options. One, you can tack and go back on the starboard tack, or you can pull behind and continue on port tack. And there's that situation. The French crew dipping behind that 49er and tacking. We've got this group coming in on starboard tack from the left-hand side. The convergence at the top mark between these skiffs coming in on port tack.
Hold her on.
And this is very critical to make sure your manoeuvres are fine and get around that top mark in the first group. And here we have Adam Bieshel and Teague Siglowski once more in front.
Well, there's no doubt about them. They've taken out the first 2 races of this Sydney Regatta. Yes, Adam Bieshel, round first. Great Britain 537, Ian Barker, and the Boyd brothers are up there this time.
And a very slow tack by Silent Night Beds. They were probably 4th or 5th at the mark, but the slow tack has put them right back. The Ukrainians rolling over the top of Silent Night Beds with Marc Ardenneau in France. But look at skill. Sailing very wide of the mark. With a slip or a stumble, they can't pull away. That's disastrous. I don't know what's going on board that boat. They just haven't really got it polished at the moment.
Well, they have 11 skiffs in front of them. Spinnaker finally set, and there's also a bit of carnage there. Someone's over. And this makes it very difficult for the following skiffs under Spinnaker. Almost another collision there, but Finlandia Vodka.
Still good pressure behind us, isn't there?
Risto Tapper negotiating these swells. It's quite extraordinary to see the harbour so choppy. This is a replay. The bow nose diving in, the boat tripping over itself, and that's the end of their race.
Possibly one of the Great Britain crews, but Adam Beashall has stolen a march again.
Adam Beashall and Teague Siglowski, they've jibed, heading back towards the start-finish gate.
It's got one
and it's
issue.
getting very familiar, this territory, for this crew.
Yes, Adam Beashall. They won the first 2 races of this Sydney regatta. Morgan Larson.
Big waves in the middle of the course there. They've stuck the nose down and nosedive.
So Morgan Larson, the Americans who've done so well in the first 2 races, have come to grief.
The breeze up,
pressure to come,
18 to 20 knots.
Yeah.
So the crew work is really being
Trouble is
stretched
that
here.
these guys join.
And you can see the wave pattern there. The bow dives down, the Spinnaker off a little bit late, and over she goes. Disaster for the American crew.
Well, this has left the Boyd brothers in second place. John and Gary Boyd after an unhappy first 2 races. And in third place at the moment is the Finns, Risto Tapper, I think.
Adam Beashall and Teague Siglowski jibing now, heading down towards the bottom of the mark. And this is the Boyd brothers, the late Macquarie crew, in second position, and certainly fighting to get a good result in this race. They've just been a little bit out of touch. As they come down to the bottom mark for the first time, they're going to do a normal Spinnaker drop and head out towards the left-hand side of the course. And what a commanding lead they have early in this race.
Well, this is a carbon copy of their first 2 races.
And here's that wave pattern. You can see the heavy swell. Wouldn't be surprised that's off a ship that's come down Sydney Harbour. And it certainly was disastrous for Morgan Larson.
Outgoing tide against the fresh nor'easter, creating those waves as well. And the orange flash of the Boyd brothers finally getting their act together in second place, closely followed by Risto Tapper of Finlandia and Adrian Stead and Zeb Elliott of Great Britain around in fourth. Adam Beashall, race leader, on port tack at the moment. About to tack and go round the top mark in first place.
Gordon, these boats have got very similar boat speed. And look at the distance that Adam and Teague have opened up. They've probably got about a 200 to 300 metre lead, which is quite incredible on this short 900 metre top to bottom course.
And can they pull off a hat-trick of wins here? The Boyds are in second place. They've had a terrible time. They finished 17th in the qualifying series, so they really only scraped into the final. They had a 9th and an 11th in the first 2 races, but this is more like their true potential. Currently in second place, ahead of Finland. But Adam Beashall, Australia, it's the Aussies 1-2.
You can see that Gary Boyd, the forward hand on the right, has the main sheet, and John has the jib in his hand, and that's to ease the jib when they hit a bad wave. The skipper is actually working the headsail, which is quite distinctive from other types of sailing boat where the forward hand usually operates the headsail.
So approaching the top mark for Adam Beashall.
Just getting themselves sorted out here. You can see Adam getting those sheets sorted out. He has the jib. He just passed it to Teague to just ease the jib. They'll ease the boom bang to release the pressure on the mainsail for the bear away. Down the back of the bus. The clock's going. Let's watch the Spinnaker set. Teague in there pulling the halyard up. Goes now for the Spinnaker sheet. Whoa, the halyard has slipped out of the cleat.
Yeah.
He's pulled it back up again. Now that could be a problem. If that lets go down their Spinnaker run, they could easily capsize.
So the Boyds have noted that, and they have accelerated around the mark.
22 seconds the delta.
Gary Boyd working overtime. The chute's up. and set.
As the crew's in the middle of the boat, that's when the skiffs are most vulnerable. They're very important. The helmsman just keeps the boat nice and flat, steers it through the waves, and then as soon as they can get the crew out on the trapeze, that's when the boat accelerates. But a nice handy lead there by Adam and Teague, probably about 150 metres, and now they'll be looking at them, will be looking underneath the boom to try and pick that vital angle back in towards the start-finishing gate.
Now, is there a danger of that cleat slipping again? Because that would be a disaster for them.
Certainly is. What happens with use, the cleat has teeth on it and it wears out, and sometimes you get a little bit of wear on the rope as well, so that'll be in the back of their mind. Going into the jibe now.
Say port rounding in here.
The Boyds are closing hard in second place. The Finns are third at the moment.
Pressure in 3.
Just trying to negotiate through the waves. We've got old sailing ships, we've got ferries, we've got spectator craft, and we've got 49ers everywhere.
Well, this is the place to be, though, out in front of the fleet.
Can't go into defensive mode too much in the skiff type racing. The boats are too quick. People can get either side of you very quickly, and you stand to lose a lot more if you go into a defensive mode too early. You've got to be pretty much on the attack the whole way around. There's the old saying, it's never over to the fat lady sings, so keep pushing forward at all times.
It certainly is the golden rule. Once you go defensive in skiff sailing, the boat takes over, and usually your opposition does too. But the disaster for the Finlandia crew, Risto Tapper, the Finnish crew, experiencing Sydney Harbour at its best.
Well, they were hit by a severe gust after rounding that top mark. They've done a nosedive, and they have lost all chance in this race after being in third place.
As they come down towards the bottom of the course, you can see the wind lines on the water, barely even. There would be sort of 5 degree, maybe 8 degree shifts out there, but on a course only 900 metres top to bottom, not very many passing lanes. Jibing now on the Boyd brothers. Nice execution, nice acceleration out of the jibe.
John Boyd, an engineer by profession. This crew coached by Ian Brown, the former bronze medalist. All of the Aussie crews under his mentorship.
As Adam Beechel and Teague Szuzlowski opting to go out to this left-hand side of the course, a slightly wide rounding by the leading skiff and an early drop by the Boyd meant that they haven't picked that jibe angle correctly and had to jibe and two sail into the bottom mark, so a little bit of time lost there.
There's Silent Night Bets on the right, and Adrian Stead from Great Britain.
As they had come down towards the bottom of the course, breeze still around the 18, maybe gusting up to 20, and here's the world champion Chris Nicholson, and what a move he's made. He's actually eliminated one jibe, having to sail really square to this bottom mark, and in doing so has gone from 5th to 3rd.
That's amazing. He was back in 11th place, upwind when they went through the start-finish gate, so this has been a startling comeback by Chris Nicholson.
We go back to our leader, Adam Beechel, Teague Szuzlowski tacking. They seem to be doing it just so easy, and it's amazing in all the sports you watch. The one that's out in front or leading, they seem to be doing it so effortlessly.
Well, they can do no wrong, and this has been just an outstanding performance. The Boyds bouncing back from a couple of disappointing races.
And it all
second place.
All came from a good start. They picked the top end of the line, got out in clear air, and that's the difficulty that Chris Nicholson's been having, getting off that start line.
Well, you mentioned Teague Szuzlowski and Adam Beechel had been working on start control. It's been spot on, hasn't it, in the first 3 races?
They've seemed to be able, they're picking the middle of the line to start, and as the gun go, they've been bouncing out into clear air and working on their height and speed has been perfect.
So skilled with their stunning performance, up into 3rd place now after being back in 12th, rounding that top mark the first time. Well, Julian Bethwaite, what about this comeback of Skilled?
You were seeing Chris Nicholson now in 3rd place. He came from an appalling start, has done an absolutely spectacular downhill run, staying out on the northern side of the harbour, picking up some more air, and he's now pulled through into 3rd place, just through very good boat handling and good crew work.
So it's Adam Beechel, Australia first, the Boyd's Australia second, and Skilled Australia in third place.
Or not? I think the Australian crews definitely have a slight advantage out here on Sydney Harbour. We talk about the wind shifts, we talk about the tide and the currents. One thing in particular with Chris Nicholson is his ability to get his head out of the boat and pick those very slight wind shifts on Sydney Harbour. And there's really no guy better.
And look at the near perfect tack there by Adam Bieshel and Teague Sislowski. Their crew work has been a feature of the regatta so far.
One thing I'm noticing on the top skiffs is when they do tack, they launch themselves out on trapeze and then hook up later. And that's maximising the riding moment straight out of the tack for maximum acceleration. And that involves fitness, practice, and all the other work. The dexterity that goes into sailing this type of boat really puts them apart from all other sailing craft.
So that was a slow attack there by the Boyd twins, but they are comfortably in second place as Adam Bieshel applies a loose cover as they work up to the top mark for the last time.
Coming off the Shark Island shore, which is midway up Sydney Harbour, on the eastern side of Sydney Harbour. You can see there Teague is having a bit of a look round. Both legs interlocked.
Nice job.
We've got some afternoon spectators coming across the course. I hope they're getting a good look. Yep. They're certainly not helping the sailors out there.
But around they go. And just a final spinnaker run to the finish. And this will be 3 wins in a row. Let's see if they had that cleating problem with the halyard. Not so far.
If that spinnaker halyard let go and they were in a nose-diving situation, that'd be the end of the race. So they're going to have to take it fairly easy down here. They don't want to load the skiff up too much. But as Adam says, they can't go defensive. Got to keep attacking. Right down the back of the bust, you can see Adam's left foot there, right at the back of the wing.
Yeah, more pressure to come.
Clocking about, what, 18 knots at the moment, Rob?
Yes, they'd certainly be getting up to those sort of speeds. You can see the small adjustments they're making to keep this boat dead, bolt upright, negotiating the waves, moving their weight in and out, steering around it, perfect trim, avoiding spectator craft. It's all happening.
She comes.
Brilliant performance here by Adam Bieshel.
She'll need a bit of bang on if she can.
They probably won't ever have a day or a regatta like this.
Yep.
3 wins against the top crews in the world in the 49er skiffs. This is the Schneider regatta, the 3rd regatta of this series. We're building to the World Championships on Port Phillip Bay, and of course beyond that, Sydney 2000, right here on the harbour.
As they come down towards the finish, everything under control, they'd be feeling good. The heart would have been relaxed by about 20 beats per minute, knowing that they've done a great job here.
Well, that is a truly marvellous performance from Adam Bieshel and Teague Sislowski, and don't they know it? That is spectacular sailing.
They'd certainly be getting the opposition starting to think now. Everyone's been chasing Chris Nicholson for the last 2 years, and now another Australian crew have proven that they're going to be a real contender for that gold medal spot. As the Boyd brothers, the crew from Lake Macquarie, cross in second position, and they'll certainly build their confidence up because they're certainly going to be chasing that gold medal position as well.
And let's take our hats off to Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe. That is one of the great comebacks in this whole Schneider regatta. They were in 12th place. But all the accolades with Adam Bieshel and Teague Sislowski. Real surprise packets, and now one of the front runners in the world. We'll be back to wrap up the official placings very shortly. Official results of race 3 on Sydney Harbour. Adam Bieshel and Teague Sislowski have made it 3 in a row. The Boyd brothers coming through in second place ahead of Skilled. Silent Night Bed's Dan Slater proving very consistent. And the European crews really struggling in the fresher conditions on Sydney Harbour. Progressive points in the series. Adam Bieshel first, Chris Nicholson, the world champion, second, Morgan Larson third, Ordino of France in fourth, ahead of the McKee brothers from the United States. And also back there, 3 of the 5 Great Britain crews. This week's 49er profile is brought to you by UCMS, leaders in customer management solutions. The American team of Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall met at a junior sailing regatta, and as we've already seen in this series, are strong contenders for the Olympic dais.
Well, I think Julian Bethwaite hit it right finally with this boat. It's a fantastic boat, great balance, really good feel, and it's fast. The key to winning him, I think, is time on the water. And again, Chris Nicholson sort of showed us what that's all about. And a few of us put in the time since then, and we're started catching up. But again, it's time on the water and just focused sailing and trying to take steps and move in the right direction. Our strengths on the course, I guess, would be just kind of conservative tactics. Kevin Hall, he's excellent crew and really methodical about the tactics on the boat. And he does a great job of just picking ourselves through the fleet and not doing anything too risky. And that usually works pretty well for us.
Is sailing 49 as your livelihood?
No, no, not yet. Hopefully someday. In America, we're still not quite selling the sponsorships that we'd like to be, but hopefully soon. For me, it's sailing much bigger boats, anything from 30-footers on to maxi boats, and just going racing on that professional circuit there.
The Olympics is your ultimate goal?
I think that that's everybody out there that we're racing with. That's all of our ultimate goal. But for us, just the experience and being able to travel and sail in the World Championships and high-level regattas against the rest of the guys from around the world. It's sort of what it's all about for us.
There are 3 different types of sails on a 49er. The first sail is called the jib, and this is set at the front of the boat. The second sail is called the mainsail. Both of these sails are built to be as light as possible, and they're made out of Kevlar and Mylar. Because the mainsail is of such a big size, it needs something to support the cloth. So those long black lines along the sail are called battens, and those are used to support the sail. They're usually made of some type of tube or composite fibre. The third sail is the spinnaker. That's the very colourful sail that gets pulled out at the top mark.
This week's Olympic class profile is the Mistral sailboarder Jessica Crisp. Jessica has been sailing boards for over half her life, and after finishing 5th in the '98 World Championships, feels that she's right on track for Sydney 2000.
I know you're alone and it's like exhilarating, it's really fast, it's sort of out of control at times, you sort of become like addicted to it and you can't stop. It's just, I don't know, it's a feeling I can't get from anything else. And our World Championships, I suppose, are 12 months away, so I hope I keep getting better until then, and I hope to improve. I've actually been improving, like 3 years ago I was 8th, then I was 6th, then I was 5th, so I hope I just keep moving up. Sacrifice? Oh, I don't think I had to make any sacrifices. Except I have to get fit, and I hate gyms. I'm allergic to gyms, and I'm the laziest person on the earth, and now I have to get fit, so sacrifice myself to get to a gym. It's pretty...
Your father has won an Admiral's Cup. How does he feel about the less traditional sport of sailboarding?
He likes it. It's so funny. Every time I come back to Australia, Dad gets out and he goes, okay, I'll race you, I'll give you a race. So he's quite funny. He is supportive. It's so funny. Every time I go yacht sailing with him, I'm like, what are you doing? Do this, do that. So, no, Dad's really supportive. Here we go. I work with Dad. I window plane. And, but I haven't been doing that lately because I've been away all the time. So I think I'm going to get fired. Now I'm just eating into my savings and going windsurfing for the Olympics, for the love of it. My hopes is to actually make it to the Olympics, and then once there, I better bloody do well.
So to race 4, and look what's happened to one of the spectator boats.
Looks like one of the spectator boats is hooked there rigging around one of the pylons off Shark Island, and what a disaster as they come into the start of race 4.
Shoot on a bit. Shoot on.
15 seconds, we've got Skilled very close to the
We're
committee
racing
boat.
here, let's
They
go.
look very early at the top end
we're
of the
miles
line.
back.
As one boat looks like it'll have to bail out and restart. We have a couple of boats coming in on port tack, but they're going to be very late. Looks like they're very early at the top end of the line. We'll see whether or not it's an all-clear start.
Now we have head cam on Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater, and they had a pretty good start. That's the dark stripe in the middle of the fleet there.
Okay, we have a clean start here in race 4. We have a really fresh southerly breeze blowing. It's up around 18 to 19 knots, and the water is very flat. So these guys are going to really hoot around this course.
Thanks a lot, Julian. And yes, that expected southerly has come in. The breeze has freshened, and this means the boats will be working their way up into Rose Bay. The course, 900 metres top to bottom. So the convergence at the top mark, we've got the typical split in the fleet. One group going left, the other group going right. And this is Mark Ordino coming out to the right-hand side, heading towards Shark Island. And here we have Morgan Larson in USA 208, followed by David Mann and Grant Rollerson in the Nicorette skiff. Both skiffs tacking now, trying to get into that left-hand vein of breeze that comes down out of Rose Bay. On board Silent Night Beds.
Good pressure coming out of those boats up there, eh? All those guys are going.
Talking about the breeze. Very important to keep your heads out of the boat, especially in this southerly air. A lot of wind shifts coming out of Rose Bay.
Smacked here in the middle.
Talking tactics.
Nathan Handley, the crew, and Morgan Larson of the United States with Kevin Hall. Nicorette just beyond them.
Rolling over the top of Nicorette. Some good speed. We've seen great boat speed from Morgan Larson. And here's the French entry, France 1, Mark Ordino, and John and Gary Boyd. So it's the right-hand side or the left-hand side. This group coming in from the left-hand side of the course, and there's that yellow stripe. He's in the top 3 again, Adam Beechel and Teague Siglowski. So the left-hand side definitely has favoured up this first beat. This is Morgan Larson, Kevin Hall, just rolling over the top of Adam Beechel. And the leaders is the other American entry, Jonathan McKee and Charlie McKee, tacking now.
Well, they had rudder problems earlier in the series, in race 2 in fact, which saw them drop to 13th, but they've hit back with a vengeance. So it's USA 1-2. The McKee brothers, Jonathan and Charlie, leading from Morgan Larson, sail number 208. Then GB 559 in third, Tim Robinson and Ian Walker. Aldeno of France 4th, and Adam Beechel in 5th place at the moment, ahead of Nicorette.
There's a breeze line coming down the right-hand side of the course. Adam Beechel and Teague have jibed out in the middle of the course, and here we are on board the Kiwi entry, Silent Night Beds. That's the arm of Nathan Handley, and they're back in 13th position.
Yep,
Look at the breeze coming down the left-hand side of your screen. That means that these 3 skiffs, the green, the blue and the white, are right in phase. Now, Adam Beechel has jibed out into no air. So that could be costly for the series leader. And this is the green spinnaker of the McKee brothers.
Get up! Get up!
On board with the Kiwis, calling a windward boat up. So there must have been contact there. Overtaking boat must keep clear. Weather boat must keep clear. You'll probably see a protest flag come out here. So it's not going well for the Kiwis.
But it certainly is for the United States of America. Jonathan and Charlie McKee, after that blowout in race 2, are now setting the pace. Morgan Larson in 2nd place. Down on the water, Julian Bethwaite.
Seeing a huge advantage at the moment. The boats on the eastern side of the course have got this line of wind coming down, and the leaders, the 2 Americans, followed by the Englishmen, have come just straight down on one jibe, whereas those who have jibed out are going to have to do a second jibe. This is really a turning point in the race. Those who stayed and went to the east have got a huge advantage at the moment.
And that's going to be very costly for Adam Beechel, who jibed out the top mark. Here's the leaders, the McKee brothers, United States. Perfect control here. You can see them interlocked now, way down the back of the bus.
And there on the top right-hand quarter is Adam Beechel, the yellow spinnaker.
Those boats that went to the west, you can see Beechel coming past now, have probably lost already 30 or 40 seconds to the leaders, who are also already right down past Nelson Park. They may be able to gain it back if the wind holds in and blows them down to the mark, and the others have to jibe, but I'd say they've already made a huge loss.
And look at this, there's been a lead change. That breeze very fluky out there. The McKee's back in 2nd position now.
Stop it!
Kiwis calling starboard.
Stop.
When things are going bad, they just get worse. And that's the problem of sailing back in the pack.
Watch that, Job.
He's done 2 jibes within 10 seconds, so this is very costly.
You have to give us water!
So approaching the bottom mark then, the McKee brothers back in first place. Tim Robinson of Great Britain second, and Morgan Larson in third place, ahead of the Boyds.
And here we have Morgan Larson's lost control. The Boyds have to keep clear here, weather boat. There's a nasty collision, and looks like Morgan Larson has been carted off the back of his skiff. This is terrible. You can see, there's Morgan Larson. He's on board the Boyd skiff. He's out, there he is, climbing out with the orange jacket, diving back into the water.
Have you ever seen anything like that, Rob Brown?
I never have. That's an amazing turn of events. Now the ruling there, weather boat must keep clear. Boyds are definitely in the wrong, but it looked like Morgan Larson lost control of his skiff. Kevin Hall slipped into the middle of the boat wiped out, and hence the collision.
Well, both spinnaker poles seem to be gone. There's a damage to the wing there of Morgan Larson's boat, and Morgan at this point is still on the other skiff.
That's a wonder no one got seriously hurt there. Those boats were probably approaching each other around about 15 to 20 knots, and we're back with the race leader. Now, they were back in, they were leading. The wind shift put them back into third, and now they're back in front again. So it's all happening out here on Sydney Harbour. This is Tim Robertson and Ian Walker. GBR 559. The leader's tacking now. Great tack. You see he hasn't hooked up yet. Hooking up now. They're trapezing a little bit higher than the other Australian crews, and I think this is so they can get off that wind quickly and move through the boat. But normally they would be a lot lower to the water. But certainly they're doing it fine at the moment. Here we are with Adam Beashel and Teague Sizarski, the leaders of the series, looking around, and you have to in this southerly breeze to pick those wind shifts up in the Rose Bay area.
Well, Rob, let's try and just recap on our order. It's USA 205 in first place, the McKee brothers. Tim Robinson of Great Britain second. Skilled is third at the moment. Then 216 is doing a good job. Michael Coxon and Aaron Links. Then the Budgeons, followed by Adam Beashel, who's back in about 6th position.
And the McKees round the top mark for the second time, heading off under the green spinnaker. Be interesting to see if they continue down this side of the course. As Julian Bethwaite noted, the breeze came down that right-hand side, and that's the direction they went. But what a lead. Already 22 seconds, officially 24. Tim Robinson going into the spinnaker hoist, and here comes the world champion, Chris Nicholson, in skill, and he's made a lot of benefit out of that carnage that was happening down the bottom of the course, weaved through and up into 3rd position.
Just ahead of Michael Coxon and also the Budgeons from Great Britain. Adam Beashel in 6th place.
And that's where we're with right at this moment. Adam Beashel and Teague Sizlowski working their way up, remembering they jived out at the top mark the first time and probably got passed by the majority of the fleet.
This is Nicorette, David Mann and Grant Rollison. They've had a tremendous duel with Adam Beashel, who seems to have just got the better of it, approaching the top mark.
Gets very tricky up in the Rose Bay area as Tim Robinson goes into his jibe. Nice jibe at that. To head off down towards the start-finish gate.
And this is Jonathan and Charlie McKee from the United States. Well, what about their prospects as we look forward to the world titles? They hadn't performed all that well, but they've struck back very strongly here in race 4.
They certainly have. Jonathan and Charlie, I've sailed against them in the 18-foot skiffs. They certainly are good campaigners. They haven't done that many regattas in Australia this summer, so they're a bit of an unknown quantity, but certainly this is going to be a big boost for them. Chris Nicholson in skill rates Morgan Larson as his most feared rival, and they happen to train against these guys, the McKees, who are certainly out in front and doing it in fine style.
Well, both the American crews have been consulting a sports psychologist leading into this regatta. It won't have too much effect now on Morgan Larson, who's out of the race, and possibly the series after sustaining damage, and the Boyds also have been forced to retire.
Charlie, an Olympic coach, has been working with the US team over a number of years, and now they've got the eagerness to get back and chase gold once again. And certainly we've got a lot of brother combinations out in the fleet. We've got the Boyds, we've got the McKees, we've got the Brunis from Italy,
The Budgeons from Great Britain.
It's amazing they get on so well.
It's called sibling cooperation.
As they come round the bottom mark for the last time, that's USA 205, the McKee brothers heading out the right-hand side of the course. The breeze funneling down past Shark Island. And here's second position, Great Britain, Tim Robinson. What's he going to do? He's going to head out to the left-hand side of the course. It's amazing, us sailors, how we think we can pick the breeze better than the other. So a split decision here. They're going out. They're going for that bit of an opportunity to pick up the breeze from the left-hand side, hoping to close the gap on the Americans.
Well, it's a welcome turnaround for them because they haven't been in the top 10 in the previous 3 races after qualifying back in 19th position.
They got a great start, and it just seems to me if you don't get out of the blocks in this style of racing, there's just no hope of coming through. Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe coming around. They want this right-hand side, and I reckon if Chris Nicholson was going out that side, that is the side to go.
Jonathan and Charlie McKee. Charlie, the tactician, looking up ahead to see if there are any lifts offing.
Charlie certainly has a lot to say out in the water, and it's interesting to watch their trapezing style. They're a little bit lower to the water now, but they don't interlock their legs like the other crews. And I think it's because you do so many tacks in quick succession that they like to be able to power off the wing and hit the new wing early. So some varying styles out there.
So this is Tim Robinson and Ian Walker, and they've done a grand job in this 4th race. At the moment, they have just crossed Gill and clearly in second position.
We're back with the leaders.
They're working up to the top mark for the last time. It's USA, Great Britain and Australia battling it out.
So local knowledge is very important on Sydney Harbour, and these two guys have spent 2 to 3 seasons sailing 18-foot skiffs, and it's one of those things, Gordon, Sydney Harbour is a very difficult place to sail, and the more time you spend here, the better you are going to be eliminating those idiosyncrasies of what's going to be a great spectacle in the 2000 Olympics.
So Jonathan McKee set to round the top mark in first place.
If I can round first, I can have a clean set, and I can pick my first jibe at the correct time. There's a good chance that I can extend that maybe up to a 20 or 30-second lead by the bottom mark, which, if it's any kind of normal race, that might be an unassailable lead.
Jonathan McKee doing just that, but they won't be going to the bottom mark because once they round this top mark, it will be just the final dash to the finish line here in race 4 and a first race win in this Schneider 49er regatta here in Sydney.
It's certainly overlaid that top mark. It just shows that the wind is actually switching up to 20, 30 degrees up in that top area there. You can just see how wide they are on the mark. But I mean, they've got such a big buffer between first and second, it really won't make any difference.
Charlie McKee hoisting the spinnaker.
They've got time to make a cup of tea down this run. No pressure. And the limited sailing that they've done in Australia this summer, this certainly will get their eagerness up to throw it up against the Australians. The Australians have dominated the series thus far, but you can never write them off. The Americans, they're very good campaigners. They've been doing a lot of work, and this crew haven't spent a lot of time in Sydney. Oh, look, we've got the spinnaker. Hey, it's let go. And that's happened a number of times in this series. That could have been costly if they were in close quarters with another skiff, but they've got such a lead, it won't make any difference.
So you've got Morgan Larson and Jonathan McKee, 2 top American crews. Remember, only 1 crew gets the Olympic berth. With the Australians, we've got Nicholson, we've got Bichel, we've got the Boyds. So it really is going to be a dogfight as we get towards that Olympic final selection.
And we've still got 20 months to go before the Olympics. We've seen the dominance of Chris Nicholson being tested by Adam Beashel and the Boyds. So I think it's going to be a similar situation with the American selection as well.
And in this Schneider 49er regatta series, we are building up to the World Championships on Port Phillip Bay in Melbourne.
And as the American crew, Jonathan and Charlie McKee, jibe for the last time in this race, as they head down towards the finish, you can see a nice gust coming down the middle of the course. You can see how patchy it is. The light and dark patches have certainly played havoc out here with the crews this afternoon.
But nothing will stop the McKees scoring their first win of the series. They qualified in third. They were fifth in the opening race, then had rudder problems in the second race for a 13th, seventh in race 3, and now are first placing finally in race 4.
As they cross now the finishing line, that's their first victory this summer. Big confidence booster for the American crew, and have certainly streeted ahead and have won this race in fine style. Good recovery by Adam Beashel. He's up into 4th position just behind Skill. And this is the Great Britain crew of Tim Robertson and Ian Walker. And what a great result for these guys.
Yes, they haven't been up in the top 10 in recent times. So a tremendous finish there for the Brits. Over in second place, they've pipped Skilled, who will come across in third place. But the annoying point, I suppose, for Chris Nicholson is that Adam Beashel has staged a big recovery. Remember, at one stage he was back in 10th place, but here that early collision.
And here we have Morgan Larson in the right. Windward boat must keep clear. The Boyd brothers definitely were in the wrong, even though they had no option with that manoeuvre by Morgan Larson, who lost control.
So the official result, the McKee brothers first. Tim Robinson of Great Britain second, Chris Nicholson, Australia third, ahead of Adam Beashel, and then Michael Coxon, number 216 in 5th position. The French in 11th, Dan Slater, New Zealand, Silent Night Beds in 13th, and the Boyds didn't finish. Progressive points, well, the big news is that Morgan Larson was awarded average points by the jury, so he is in second place, Skilled third, and the McKee brothers in 4th position. And perhaps Chris Nicholson is smiling again because he's come through in very strong fashion.
Feel like you're back on the pace a bit now?
Yeah, a lot better day today. It's pretty tough when, you know, like when someone like Adam turns on a day like yesterday. It was an awesome display and that sort of thing. You know, it can take you a week to wind back those sort of points, let alone just doing it in one day.
Heaps of great action on the next episode of the Schneider 49er series. And Melbourne will host the 99 World Sailing Championships down on beautiful Port Phillip Bay. From the 6th to the 17th of January, the world's best sailors will do battle for the sport's penultimate trophy in a timely lead-up to the Olympics. So 2 races to go in the Schneider Sydney Regatta, and can Nico catch Beashel? See you next time. Welcome to the foreshores of a windswept Sydney Harbour, which will be the theatre for Olympic racing in the year 2000. The crack Aussie skipper Adam Beashel has set the pace in the races here in Sydney, but the McKee brothers from the United States came through with a slashing win in race 4. So stand by for some belting action in the final 2 races here on Sydney Harbour.
I've been sailing this 49er just 18 months, and earlier we used to sail racers and 470s far away from this kind of fast dinghy boat. So when the time goes on, so the cooperation goes smooth and all the time, and it gets better all the time. So just wait and see.
Yes, here are the standings after 4 races of this Sydney Regatta. Adam Bichel ahead of Morgan Larson, Chris Nicholson third, then the McKee brothers in 4th place, Aldeno of France in 5th, and the Budgeons from Great Britain in 6th. The southerly breeze, 10 to 15 knots, Rob Brown.
850 metres top to bottom. Boats come down under Spinnaker. The choice of 2 marks at the bottom of the course. They work back up. The number of laps determined by the wind strength, and they finish under Spinnaker.
So it looks as though Adam Bichel and Chris Nicholson are aiming towards the middle of the line here.
Could this be the world champion and world champion-elect? As they come into the start, boat control and necessity. They want to be hitting that start line at maximum pace when the gun goes. 8 seconds to go, and here we have the lovely yacht Cambria, beautifully restored, America's Cup yacht. The start of race 5. We've got Dan Slater at Silent Night Beds, close to the committee boat.
A very, very tight bunch start here. They're all hooking off to the eastern side. The wind's gone flat. It's pulling out of the southeast. So they're all going over there to try and get the advantage off the start.
Thank you, Julian. Down on the committee boat, and he'll be giving us updates through this race.
And it looks as though Adam Bichel hasn't quite had the acceleration this time from the middle of the line.
Chips on a bit. And right on his transom there is Skilled, which is probably locking him out. They've got no option to keep on going off to that left-hand side of the course. Big knocking 5, I think. Contrary to these 2 skiffs. Gyro post coming across to the Shark Island shore. We've got Adam Bichel in Kodak Express with Teague Sazowski in the bow, and the Boyd brothers from Belmont.
They're getting a lot of dirty wind there, Rob.
I think they might be just slightly to weather good, but certainly if they suck down any lower towards the skiff here, they will have to tack away. Teague just having a bit of a look round, trying to sort their way through this myriad of boats. They're not certainly in a good position at the moment. They want to tack. They go now, tacking. And these 2 skiffs here have come right across to the right-hand side of the course, over towards Shark Island, heading up into Rose Bay in this southerly. They're tacking now, back towards the centre of the course, towards the top mark, and then we'll see whether these 2 are right or the majority of the fleet which have gone across to the left-hand side. And this is the English crew, Brotherton and McDonald, followed by Gyro Post, and in fact they're on the ley line, and that is a line which brings them closest to the wind, which will take them to the top mark.
Silent Night Beds also doing a little better in this race after bombing out in race 4.
We've got the convergence of the 2 fleets now, the right versus the left, as they converge on the top mark, and the skiffs on the left-hand side at the top of your screen look like they have done a lot better. They're reaching in, they've actually overlaid. This is Dan Slater and Nathan Hanley, the Kiwis, having a bit of a look round, working their way up to the upper reaches of Rose Bay. And look at the fleet coming in from that left-hand side. This is Zeb Elliott and Adrian Stead having to duck behind that skiff because they're on port tack as they tack now themselves to go into the top mark.
And Skilled again out the back door.
Silent Night Beds tacking now. All these boats coming in on port. Very dangerous situation because of the no tack zone. You cannot tack within 2 boat lengths, and if a boat coming in on starboard has to hold the course, the infringement notice will be served.
And the McKee brothers, Jonathan and Charlie, have said, catch us if you can. Silent Night Beds into 2nd place. Brotherton from Great Britain is there. And the French entry doing quite well. Number 342, Journet and Hubert.
Bichel's back in the mob, just behind the Boyd brothers. And here we are with the leaders, Jonathan and Charlie McKee. They like being out in front. We've got first use of the breeze. And here we have a spinnaker set, a bungled spinnaker set. The spinnaker has been sucked out of the tube into the water, and the boat actually trips over the top of the spinnaker. That's the end of the race for these guys.
One more.
So, Jonathan and Charlie McKee, Silent Night Beds, Paul Brotherton, and Journet of France. And Australia's sail number 216, Michael Coxon, up there in 5th place.
Got the Americans comfortably in the lead again. Basically, they were the first boat to the left, first boat to the east, They got the new slant and they've got themselves probably a 10-second buffer. In this race, they should be able to extend that out to probably 30, 40 seconds and to a comfortable win. You've got a huge stoush happening behind. People will be lapping and trying to block off each other's gas and stop them.
It certainly is very congested out there, and the leader always has that little bit of advantage where he's not tussling with the boats around him. You get boats back in this situation where they fight each other, you tend to jibe more, you're trying to clear your air, and that certainly does cost time.
And Skilled, and also Adam Bieshel, the regatta leader, are out the back door at the moment.
Another capsize. Can't quite pick up who that... Oh, there's capsizes everywhere, so the breeze has kicked in.
Yeah.
What is going on out there? That's the Finnish crew. Finlandia vodka.
Another one goes down. The Boyd brothers.
Got to run deep. Have to run deep.
This breeze has kicked in slightly, but by no means, you know, it's flat water. I just can't understand why all these boats are capsizing.
So the McKee brothers from the United States, winners of race 4, throwing out a challenge now to Adam Bieshel. Silent Night Beds is there as well.
The boats converge down towards the bottom of the course. Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater from New Zealand.
Like wild pins, so
boat speed up around 15, 18 knots in this southeasterly breeze, which is only around 15 to 18 knots of breeze.
Yeah, it will be, right.
It certainly is a little bit confusing why they're having so much trouble in conditions which you'd say is perfect for 49er racing.
Well, it's a nice handy advantage here for the McKee brothers. Silent Night Beds were second through the gate. We'll have to see how they fare at this bottom mark.
Interesting that the McKees have chosen to come out to the right-hand side of the course, which is contrary to the first beat, so the wind is definitely switching in direction.
Paul Brotherton in second place. Silent Night Beds there also, going for the left-hand side. So Dan Slater, Silent Night Beds, they were around in second place at the bottom mark, and we're now just past the halfway mark, having gone through the start-finish gate.
It's the Americans coming out to the starboard tack lay line, the top mark for the second time. They'll be just working out that critical angle into the top mark. Charlie McKee just having a bit of a look round there. Very light conditions. You know, the breeze probably dropped down about 10 or 12 knots. You saw them bending their legs. Couldn't utilise the full crew weight out on the wing. So now approaching the top mark.
Well, the interesting point here, Rob, is that Adam Bieshel has taken a long tack out to the left-hand side of the course, and if that's the case, that right-hand shift you're talking about, he's going to be very disadvantaged. But Skill has read it very well.
Yes, he's seen this gust line coming down from the right-hand side, so he's going to have big gains up this second beat. You see Silent Night Beds tacking towards the top mark. We're back with our leaders. They'll be getting in readiness. They'll be looking up the course just to see where the breeze is, to work out whether they continue down the left-hand side of the course or do a jibe set and come out the other direction.
Well, they'll certainly drop their 13th placing in race 2. But apart from that, they've been no worse than 7th.
As the McKees come around the top mark, you can see those group of boats coming in from the left. We've got Skilled out on this far right-hand side, who's out of picture coming in. This is second place, Silent Night Beds. Dan Slater, who's also come in from the right-hand side, has done very well up this beat. 22 seconds.
Paul Brotherton and Neil MacDonald from Great Britain have done a good job as well.
The mere fact that Jonathan McKee has elected to go down and continue on that starboard reach means that the breeze has gone back to the left. Here's Skilled tacking round now.
So they're in third place. The McKees from the United States leading. Silent Night Beds, New Zealand second. Skilled third, then Paul Brotherton from Great Britain.
Oh, you should do your turns, mate.
The Budgeon brothers and also the French crew coming around there. There's a bit of communication between the crews. Tacking in that no tack zone at the top mark. You'll probably see a few red flags out on that incident. Back with our leaders, Jonathan and Charlie McKee from the United States. Nice jibe, good acceleration. And here's Adam Bieshel and Teague Szydlowski back in the mob. They're going to find their way through. They can't afford a bad result.
Yeah.
They've got the series pretty well wrapped up, but they just don't want to let these guys get on top of them. They want to nail them home in this regatta.
I can't. I've got the short, fat guys inside us.
Everyone heading down this reach. And McKee's probably 400 or 500 metres further down the track, already jibed and heading back towards the centre of the course. That's Shark Island in the top left-hand corner of your screen. Green Spinnaker is McKee's first. And here we have Silent Night Beds jibing. Had to jibe for that skiff coming up on starboard tack.
All lifted behind us now, which is good.
And it's a nice angle into the gate. The gate is the white mark and the committee boat off to the left-hand side.
Adam Bieshel,
now's when we want to go.
series leader, is back in 10th position, but he does have some good speed downwind and could easily pass several skiffs here.
Driving now on board the McKee brothers boat, heading down towards the bottom mark at Shark Island.
Silent Night Beds on the left.
There's a lot of wind shifts out here. That's why they're jibing so often, Gordon. You've got to stay in the wind lines. If you sail out of the gust, your angle to the bottom mark gets worse, and also your boat speed drops off. So it's very critical to stay in the little gust lines that are coming down out of Rose Bay.
And these Americans giving nothing away. They've opened up a big lead. And Skilled coming down near Shark Island. It's
So
also
more right-hand
fast
to
tracking
come
the bottom mark.
As they approach the bottom mark, they've elected to go out to this right-hand side. They've picked the right-hand mark, choice of two marks at the bottom of the course, and they'll be heading back towards the Shark Island right-hand side of the course. Let's look at the time and just see whether or not the McKees have held their position.
Well, it looks as though it's going to be up around 30 seconds, so they have increased their lead, in fact, over Silent Night Beds.
The choice of wind direction, staying in the gust, is so critical on these downwind legs because the boats are such high performance that if you have an extra 1 or 2 knots, that certainly does increase the speed of the boat. So there we have, we've got 30 seconds, probably going to be about 35, 36 seconds. So the McKee brothers doing it easy at this stage.
Skilled coming down in third place and putting in a big spurt. Just out of picture at the moment is series leader Adam Bieshel.
So what that indicates, Skilled has gained, Silent Night Beds has lost time on the leader, so you have to say that Skilled picked the better angles, stayed in those wind lines down on that particular reach.
And there is Adam Bieshel.
Coming in on starboard, he has right, he hits the 2 boat length circle, those other boats have to keep him clear. Now this is pressure on the crew. Now that boat coming in there, the Great Britain crew, does not have right. And we've got a capsize. Some can handle the pressure and some can't.
Well, Michael Croxton, it looked like, going over there.
You'll probably
what a
see,
stunning performance there, Rob, by Adam Bieshel.
Here we have, they're coming in on starboard. They had an overlap on those there, so Adam Bieshel has full right. But look at the work Teague Szydlowski has done here. He's got that spinning in the bag. Now that skiff coming in, if there's contact, pretty hard to pick up there. And there's the other skiff capsizing in the background.
So Adam Bieshel has passed 6 skiffs on that downwind leg and has moved into 4th place behind Skilled in 3rd.
We've got Skilled, who came and went against the odds. They've hooked back over to Shark Island, and it looks like they've gone and picked up the scalp of Silent Night Beds. Also hooking into Shark Island is Bieshel, who's in Kodak.
So Silent Night Beds has lost out badly there, Rob. And indeed Skilled has moved into 2nd place, as Julian Bethway told us, and probably Adam Bieshel into 3rd.
It really is strange when you do get out of phase with the breeze. It's very hard to clear your thinking, except the fact that you've lost time. And here we've seen Dan Slater and Nathan Hanley completely rattled with what the breeze is doing. These guys, a little bit more control, are in tune with the breeze and making big gains.
Yes, that was Tim Robinson and his Great Britain teammates, Paul Brotherton, having their own private war as they go through the start-finish gate, working up to the top mark.
You there?
Breeze lightening off. You saw Charlie there, just stepping forward. As the breeze lightens, you've got to move your weight forward to keep the bow in.
Go hard
As
now.
you're talking breeze. On a day like today, your head's got to be out of the boat, looking around, because the gusts are coming down in small pockets, and if you're not in them, that means you're going slow and low.
Now, what about the weight configuration, the weight of the cruise that is? How does that alter performance of the boat itself? Because it is one design, in theory, all equal.
Well, the crew weight does vary from boat to boat, and that's compensated to even the fleet up by the width of the wings. There is a weight compensation. Some of the lighter crews have lead corrector weights, up to 10 kilos of lead is added to the boat, but their wings are at maximum extension. A crew like these guys, the Americans, they're around the 145 to 150 kilo. They probably have their wings in probably about 50 millimetres more than what a lighter crew would have.
So in effect, it's a handicapping system to make it all equal for the crews, in theory.
That's correct. As they round the mark now, Charlie McKee in there hoisting the spinnaker. They've got pressure on them, but nowhere near as much pressure as some of these skiffs trying to work out how they're going to catch these guys. The Americans pedal down the reach.
There's a hard one. 200 yards.
Skilled in second place.
Has not smelt the smoke in this regatta. Must be frustrating for Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe. They put a lot of work in, a lot of time training, and for a crew that's used to winning a lot, especially Chris, this will be pretty frustrating stuff for them.
Well, they have set such a high standard, haven't they? But the McKees too have shown the way as they power towards the finish line. Skilled in second place. They've been no worse than fourth in this regatta. Fourth in the opening two events, then 2/3. And now they look as though they're going to nail down second place. That's still that elusive greeting of the judge. Not going their way.
There was a nice tack, a nice rounding and a nice set by Chris. He'd be happy with that one. The Americans now jibing, heading down for the finish. Only a disaster can take this win away from them. 2 wins in this series. They'd be pretty pleased with that result.
Back-to-back victories for Jonathan and Charlie McKee. And that is very satisfying after coming to grief with rudder problems in the second race. They've always had the speed, and they've shown it here this afternoon.
Sailed against the Americans quite a lot in the skiffs, and one of their finest attributes is the ability to pick wind shifts, and they certainly have done that this afternoon.
And here's Chris Nicholson. Well, as a young man, he used to juggle his sailing with working dog watch in the Maitland Cessnock coal mines from Sundays to Fridays, surviving on a maximum of 5 hours sleep a night. He's renowned for his meticulous preparation, and he's come through with his best finish of this whole series.
I think to try and stay on top of the heap for so many years is a daunting task for anyone, and I know Nico will stick at it, and I'm sure that he's going to bridge the gap. He's having a mid-season slump at the moment as he crosses the line, but I'm sure they're going to work on their boat speed, their technique, and I think with one thing in particular, getting off the starting line in good shape.
And here's Adam Beechel. Remember, they were back in 11th place. They had a great downwind leg the second time, and they will come through into 3rd position to wrap up this Schneider 49er regatta here in Sydney. That has been an amazing performance. They've been no worse than 4th, and in effect have had 4 victories, counting their qualifying position.
And they've fought back. Adam Beechel and Teeks Zalowski have fought back from 11th position, which is a great sign for a great crew, as the Budgeson brothers cross the finishing line. And here's an example of the varying directions in breeze and strength. Just look at the angles. They're all heading down towards the start finishing gate. Look at the blue spinnaker at the top of your screen. It's a big right-hand gust. Wind, the dominant factor today.
Recapping results of race 5 on Sydney Harbour in the Schneider 49er series. The McKee brothers ahead of Chris Nicholson in skilled, then Adam Beechel, the series leader, and the Budgeons GBR1 in 4th place. And look at Number 16 there, equal 16th, Port Longyear-Wilson, the Boyd twins. Well, they've gone backwards. Progressive points in this Sydney regatta. Adam Bieshel with an unassailable lead, skilled in second place. Morgan Larson getting redress and average points. He didn't sail in race 5, nor will he in race 6. This week's 49er profile is brought to you by UCMS, leaders in customer management solutions. Meet the husband and wife team of Tina and Trevor Bayliss from Canada. Now here is a marriage built on stone.
We've been married 15 years. We're both very sensitive to tones and what could have been meant by that comment.
And there's not much time on a skiff to really figure things out. But I think that we're weathering it fine. It makes the highs higher and the lows probably a little lower. I don't know if I'd ever recommend it to anyone, but for us it's working, so that's a good thing.
I think compared to a lot of the teams, we started with fairly low expectations. We were trying to learn how to sail the boat. I think a lot of good sailors don't get through the learning stage of the 49er. They give up before, they give up in frustration.
I always
because
say
it's so hard.
I had to leave my ego on the beach when I went sailing, especially the last 100 yards to and from the beach is the hardest part of sailing a skiff. You end up running into someone or into a boat or to the dock. Not that I do that anymore, of course.
No, when you have a good race, it feels pretty good. I mean, especially since, we're competing against world champions and all the rest of it. And we're, a couple of windsurfers, a married couple, and we're older than most of the other competitors out here. And so when it goes right, you feel pretty proud.
Well, always our first goal is to make the gold fleet, because that's not always a given for us. It should be, but it isn't. And then the second goal is to stay married, because that's always tough when you're on a sailboat.
On 18-footers, you're used to the really big wings on an 18-footer. On a 49er, the wings are solid, and they slide in and out. Part of the sliding out process is a weight equalisation process. You can see the stickers here and the lead. The heavier you are, the further the wings are in and the less lead. Lighter, the further the wings are out and the more lead.
This week's profile is the baby brother of the 49er, the 29er. Designed by the father of the 49er class, Julian Bethwaite, the 29er is aimed to help kids make the exciting transition into the world of skiff sailing.
So, Julian, tell us the idea behind the 29er.
Well, a bit like the 49er, there's a whole move towards skiff sailing. A lot of the kids are bored of the existing types of boats, or that we're just not getting the flow of kids through into the new boats. So the idea was to generate a boat kids wanted to sail, rather than were being forced to sail, and 29er is it. We're already producing about 5 boats a week in England. It's gone quite berserk, especially through Germany and up in Scandinavian countries. America's gone berserk. We're producing up in Canada. We're selling boats here, but we're fairly well progressed into the season. We would expect our big growth next year. And okay, we've got boats in South America, South Africa, New Zealand. They're spotted over the place. It's just starting, and at this stage it's very, very pleasing. Well, we'd expect most people who come to the 29er to have come out or to already know how to sail. They would have already learned to sail in, say, a training program, Sabos, Optimists, or any of the other types of boats, Escapes. But, it's not inconceivable to see people learning to sail in 29ers in their own right. They would have to have someone on board who actually knew what they were doing. But it's quite conceivable.
Plenty of people out here watching the 49ers this afternoon. The breeze out of the southeast, 10 to 15 knots. The breeze is actually lightened somewhat as they come into the start line. Boats there jockeying for position. A few have tacked on the port, a very dangerous manoeuvre. Just repositioning themselves now with 10 seconds to go. A few of the boats bunched up at the top end of the line. Could be early.
Jib on.
The Boyd brothers and Skilled at this start boat end.
Go.
And also Adam Bieshel has started in the middle of the line there with Silent Night Beds.
A very long starting line, which gives a lot of options to the crews. As a very even start as they head across towards the left-hand side of the course. A number of skiffs coming back on port, and a bad start by the French.
With Adam Bieshel not being able to be beaten in this race, or for this series, the big race is going to be between the Americans, Jonathan Charlie McKee and Chris Nicholson, the world champion. The wind's kicked in again, it's back up to about 18 knots, the sun's out. The left-hand side of the course, the eastern side of the course, is going to favour heavily, and you should see them all going over there.
Thank you, Julian. As we see the boats heading off to that left-hand side, we're on board with Adam Bieshel and Teague Sislowski, who are struggling here to keep their air clean on that 49er skiff just ahead of them. Another boat very close above them. They're going to have to get out of there. They're going to be disturbed air off the sails. No.
Attack.
Here we go, packing on board the Smith's Kodak Express.
The quietly spoken Adam Bieshel, skipper of this brand new skiff.
They're tacking now, coming back across. You can see the skiffs on the top of your screen are pointing more towards this group, which means the boats on the right-hand side are going to cross clear ahead of this group coming in from the left-hand side of the course.
Something to head a little here.
That's the voice of Adam Bieshel saying they're heading, which is not good for them. And here's this group of the right hand coming across the starboard tack lay line, direct line, something as close as possible to the wind in a direction towards the top mark. And certainly this right-hand group have done just that.
And it's led by Hugh Stoddart on gyro post with Matt Owen, his crew. He drove up from Canberra on the eve of this regatta because Daniel Phillips jumped on board with Ian Barker of Great Britain. Skilled up at the ley line, but it's going to be gyro post from Australia. First round the mark ahead of Paul Brotherton, the Boyds, and there's Silent Night Beds coming in on port tack and now having to go across to starboard.
This is critical to keep the speed on, to get that spinnaker up and get clear air.
Let's go, watch it here.
And the next gaggle of boats, there's 100 boats coming in here. The McKee brothers trying to come away, they've lost it.
Slowing up if I can to get below.
Jonathan McKee's still on trapeze, but wide from his skiff.
And jibe setting.
They're to keep clear of that skiff.
Chris Nicholson's done a fantastic job.
Okay, go.
He almost collided with the McKees when both Jonathan and Charlie went overboard, and it's slid through on the inside now of Adam Bieshel.
Here's Gary and John Boyd. They're in third position. And this is the replay. Looks like Jonathan just pulled the skiff away. The G-forces threw him forward, landed in the water, all sorts of trouble. Skiffs going everywhere to avoid the collision. Not the best rounding from the Americans, who we've seen win the last two races. Back with our leaders, Hugh Stoddart and Matty Owen. And this is the first time they've been in front in this regatta.
Long way to go to the...
Can they hang in there?
Well, just speaking to Matty Owen, he said that he had to drive up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so he was exhausted by the time he had completed the first day of racing in the qualifying series. But Ian Barker's crewman had a blood clot in his lungs and had to pull out. So Daniel Phillips has joined the Brits.
Back with Kodak Express, who jibed early. They're coming back into the centre of the course, and they look like they've made up a lot of ground getting out of all that turmoil at the top mark. Very quiet on board, means everything's under control, everyone's doing their job.
Little pressure
now, it looks like the lead may have changed here. Looks like Silent Night Beds has stolen the march on gyro post, and it's important that we still remember that this breeze is changing in direction and wind strength. Picking the wind angle, staying in those gust lines down these reaches is just so critical. Heads out of the boat once again.
Yeah, keeping weight in a bit here.
Just wants to run low.
It's worth a jibe back here. It's getting soft right here.
Adam Bieshel's back in about 8th position at the moment. So that can change pretty dramatically.
They're talking about to just run out of the front of the gust line and they're jibing to try and get back in. A little bit of frustration now on the Kodak Express.
Daniel Slater, again showing some good speed in this final race.
They certainly have closed in on Hugh Stoddart and Matty Owen. They may still have the lead, but the pressure is on. The Foxes are coming. Bit of frustration there. Adam's just trying to get back in phase. When you get back in the mob, you just tend to jibe to try and clear your air, and you can't have a free run down these reaches. As we approach the bottom mark, those two skips without the spinnaker have certainly mucked up their angles, but Dan Slater and Nathan Hanley lead round the bottom mark for the first time, and gyro post coming out here to the left-hand side of the course, so a split-in decision.
Well, Dan Slater went to the left in the previous race. It backfired on him. Skilled is up in the firing line.
He's done very well. He's picked those angles well. He jived out. He was in trouble at the top mark and now is in 4th position. Closely followed by the Boyds and the Beashall team going off the right-hand side. Very critical. You can see the breeze line coming down the harbour. Fairly general, so I don't think there's a favour left or right at this point in time.
Funny stuff.
Now this is where they're so good, accelerating round the marks, and they can easily pass a couple of skips over the next couple of 100 metres.
All the talk should be wind, wind, wind. Where is the wind? Where is the fastest point to go to get up to the course? And here's the McKee brothers. They'd be very upset with themselves, says Mark Ordner and Gabriel. Capsize, breeze strength kicked in. It just seems to be when that breeze gets up around 15 or 16 knots, these boats get a little bit hard to handle. Here we have the Italian crew coming around the mark, the two French teams going around, lack of concentration, loss of control, and that's it. There's no way you can get up and get back into this race. He hits his head in frustration. This is Neil McDonald working the main sheet there with his skipper, Paul Brotherton, and they've come out to the right-hand side, and there's another British skiff out there. The Budgeons have also come out this side. So this race is far from over. There's a very strong contention. Beashall's coming back into this. Who's going to be picking the wind shift the best? That is the big question.
But it looks as though the Kiwis are suffering.
That left-hand side may not have paid off for Dan Slater. Here we are with Paul Brotherton and Neil McDonald.
This is a
Neil
jibe
sailed
set.
with me for a couple of seasons on the 18-foot skiff.
Don't know if it's
round the world sailor. Great campaigner, a great yachtsman.
Just explain that for us, Rob. A jibe set coming up for Adam Beashall and Teague Sislowski.
A jibe set means that the breeze comes from the right-hand side of the course. The way you go upwind, you go downwind. So they want to turn around, do a 180 and go back the same direction to stay in the breeze line. And the leader, Adam Beashall.
Yeah.
They've come from 6th place.
They'll hoist the spinnaker halfway up the mast, and then they'll turn the boat going into the jibe. Will gyro post do the same?
And pressure building.
Pressure building means the breeze. That means he's confident he's made the right decision. And you can see the angle of the boat heading straight back down towards the gate, where gyro post will be lifting and going away from the direction they should be. Here's the Boyd brothers
chasing hard.
More to come, is there?
But Adam Beashall out in front. Hugh Stoddard in gyro post with his crew. Matt Owen in 2nd place.
Sounds like Adam Beashall's calling all the shots. In fact, he's got the microphone on him. You'd be surprised to hear how much information is actually coming from his forward Teague Sislowski, feeding that vital information, feeding it into the computer, decisions made. And this is the Budgeon brothers. They're coming back into this race. We haven't seen a lot of them, but certainly making a late charge.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. 2, 1, jiving.
Nice controlled communication on board this boat. The series leader, race leader, Kodak Express.
Yeah.
Well, Adam Beashall has quite a heritage.
A lot of pressure here.
Talking about the breeze. Not a lot of pressure. Looking at their options.
Yeah.
Catching up to us.
Just wondering whether or not it's worthwhile. There's some good stuff coming out of the left.
So that means the breeze over their right-hand shoulder they're talking about, so they're happy to continue
this one
here.
up to wherever is our closest one, but do you? Unless we want to do a quick jibe through there.
This is sound communication. totally focused on the breeze. They've mastered these boats. Now it's just tactics and working the very best out of the tricky conditions on Sydney Harbour.
We've all lifted behind us now, which is good.
That means that the breeze is lightened behind them, so that means...
Go a little fast mode here. There's more pressure to come this side now.
Fast mode means you're going to sail a little bit higher.
Silent Night bets after leading the race, losing out on that left-hand side of the course.
Dan's had a bit of trouble on Sydney Harbour. Hasn't quite picked the wind shifts as best as what he can do.
Yeah, it will be. Okay, away you go now. Yep.
As Teague Zilowski goes in to get that spinnaker down. Be interesting to see which way they want to go up this course. You'd probably say they're going to do a jibe drop here and head out towards the right-hand side to make use of this left-hand pressure.
Really good.
Hugh Stoddard and Matty Owen decided to come out from the left-hand side.
Funny stuff coming
So
here. Watch it, Teague. Look forward, look forward.
That means they'll be sailing a knock now while Adam Bieshel is actually lifting. And you can see up the course the dark pressure.
It's like more right-hand to come now.
Coming down the right-hand side, probably about 50 metres ahead of them. Boyd brothers doing a normal set and skilled. Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe doing a late drop. Coming around, great crew work there. And the Budgeons right on their hammer. Here comes the Brits. And Silent Night Bet, he was race leader 1 lap before. How things can change out here. Very tricky place to sail Rose Bay. He certainly wouldn't be happy with this performance. He knows he can pick the breeze better than that.
Adam Bieshel then leads the way with Teague Zilowski, Hugh Stoddard and Matt Owen in second place. Skilled third, the Boyd's in fourth.
And this is where Nicholson's at his best. The bit between his teeth, looking around, trying to pick those wind shifts.
Just worried about this dead patch, how long we're going to be stuck in it.
They're in the light section of the harbour. Oh, very light, there's a big knock. They didn't read that one at all.
Just keep sailing forward a bit here.
Wait forward to keep the bow in to accelerate the boat. Breeze very switchy. We're getting 10, 15 degree wind shifts, and when you draw a map of that on a course, it certainly makes a difference if you're on the wrong side of a wind shift. Tacking now, heading up towards the top of the course for the last time. Been very impressed with the way they've handled this regatta. I think there's an element of confidence in their workmanship, and they're very relaxed on board, very composed.
Pressure back in 3.
Just calling the wind pressure onto the boat. There's the top mark. I'll probably have to do one more tack.
After this gust.
You'll see the wave pattern there. That'll make the boat slightly hard to tack.
And tack.
Well, what a purple patch it was, winning those first 3 races of this regatta. And they're heading for victory number 4.
Tacking.
Tacking to the top mark for the last time in this regatta. Harbour Street's probably
Bear
racing
away
at
then,
this
an early
point in
jibe.
time. Early jibe, which means the breeze is coming from this right side.
Okay, away you go.
So the hoist the spinnaker will get about halfway up to the top of the mark. Calling.
You there?
You'll see a jibe coming up very shortly. Oh, the halyard's gone. The spinnaker halyard slipped out of that cleat again.
Go hard now, you there?
And Nicholson has got second position. Has
Trimmer
got
on,
past
trimmer on, trimmer
Hugh
on.
Stoddard and Matty Owen.
Yeah, trimmer on, just don't want it to flog.
So a
Sorry.
nice weather beat for the last time for Chris Nicholson. Has not won a race in this series, but certainly has complemented that by having very good positions, placing in 3 out of the 6 races.
Well, it's a sweet moment for Adam Bieshel. This is home territory. His dad, Ken, 2-time world 18-foot skiff champion.
Adam sailed with Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall in the Moore Business Systems a few seasons ago on the 18-footers. We've certainly gained a lot of boat handling skills out of that exercise. And this is a great moment for Adam and Teague. They've worked hard for this.
Okay, in 2, 1, jibing.
Going into the jibe, nice and smooth, nice and controlled. No yelling, no panic, no mistakes. They can see the finishing line. There's probably a smile on their faces.
Well, folks, at this level of racing, This is the elite Olympic class. It doesn't get much better as Adam Bichel and Teague Sislowski record their 4th win of the series. 4 wins, a 4th and a 3rd. A spectacular performance as Hugh Stoddart now wants to make sure he gets that 3rd spot behind Skilled and Chris Nicholson.
Matty Owen on gyropace will be certainly trying to beat Skilled because that's his skipper in the 18-footer, so they've probably got a few beers on this one. But the world champion, Chris Nicholson, slips through at that last mark to finish 2nd, and a very close finish between the Budgeons and gyropace. I think the Great Britain crew have actually got into 3rd position and pipped them right on the line.
You're right, Rob. Yes, the Black Spinnaker came through on a great angle to the finish.
As McKee's crossed now, 2 wins of the series. So the only 2 skiffs to take races in this series were the McKee brothers and also Bichel and Sislowski from Australia. As Silent Nightbeds crosses, and here's that great rounding by Skilled, Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe getting inside the Boyd brothers. Lovely crew work. And the Budgeon brothers coming round now, hot on the heels of the Boyds.
And they're the official results of race 6. Adam Bichel 1st, Skilled 5:09 in 2nd, the Budgeons 3rd, Hugh Stoddart in 4th place, and the McKee brothers coming home in 5th. Then we have a lot of the European crews, Finlandia back in 16th position. So let's look at the progressive points then for the Sydney Regatta, and a comprehensive victory to Adam Bichel. Chris Nicholson, the world champion, 2nd place. Morgan Larson, who got average points in the last 3 races, in 3rd. Then we go down to the Boyds in equal 11th position. They'll be wanting to improve on Port Phillip Bay.
This is a great lead up into going into the Worlds from here now for us. We've put 3 regattas away under our belt, and confidence has quite risen a little over the regattas, but we don't feel quite confident yet. We've still got a lot of work ahead of us. We know that there's some mistakes we're still making out there.
All the action and drama from the 49er class at the 99 World Sailing Championships from Melbourne can be seen exclusively right here on Channel 7, commencing the 20th of February at midday. Nearly every sailing class has competed aggressively on Port Phillip Bay during the past week to determine the world's best.
So next port of call, Port Phillip Bay in Melbourne. We'll see you then. We're about to witness what many are describing as the best field of sailors ever assembled for a world title in any class. Can defending champion Chris Nicholson complete a hat-trick of world titles, or will his arch-rival from Australia, Adam Bichel, continue his hot winning streak from the Schneider 49er series? 20 overseas entries taking on Australia's 5 leading crews. Wild and woolly conditions predicted here on Port Phillip Bay. And 12 qualifying races conducted over 4 days to see who made it through to the final 25. We had 103 original 49ers starting. Skilled Chris Nicholson, Adam Bichel 2nd, the McKee brothers United States qualifying in 3rd. Silent Nightbeds, the young Kiwi Dan Slater qualifying in 11th place, all the way down to the Ukrainians in 25th position, just scraping in. And surprisingly, Rob Brown, former world 18-foot champion, the Ukrainians came from last to first for a stunning first-up victory.
And what a confidence booster that was, Gordon. These guys qualifying 25th position, taking out race 1, ahead of Gary and John Boyd from Belmont. And in 3rd position, the Italians, Francesco Bruni, who did a great job to get into third position.
So this World Championship being conducted over 12 races. We've had 2 already, and on some of the most unpredictable waters you could expect for this type of racing.
And in race 2, Emmett Lassage and Ewan McNichol, the current 18-foot skiff Grand Prix champions, took out race 2 in fine style, ahead of Andrew Escort and Bruce Curzon from New Zealand. And here they are, flying down Port Phillip Bay, and they were ahead of the Boyd brothers, very consistent, in third position.
Yes, the Kiwis, one of 3 New Zealand crews in the 25-strong final, and the Boyd brothers, as you say, the identical twins, having a startling beginning to this World Championship final series on Port Phillip Bay. So the conditions nice and fresh. The breeze 18 to 20 knots, and there's the progressive points after 2 races. The Boyd brothers in first place, Australia holding down second again through Emmett Lassage, Adam Bieshel third, and skilled Chris Nicholson in fourth place. Australia 1, 2, 3, 4, Rob Brown.
The best placed Great Britain crew is Paul Brotherton, and the Kiwis in Dan Slater in the middle of the fleet, and the Americans still struggling. And here's the course. They start, work their way up into the breeze, zigzagging up the course to the top marker. They round that mark, set their spinnakers, and jibing downwind through the downwind gate, and a choice of bottom marks. Today we'll be doing 2 laps and then a run to the finish.
And the IOC President's Cup has been donated by President Samaraj to recognise the leading nation in Olympic class sailing, and the Australians certainly having a great chance in their home waters right across the Olympic classes.
Beautiful Port Melbourne in the backdrop as the 49ers line up for race 3. And you might have seen the Boyd brothers on the shore with gear problems. They will not be competing in this race. We've got Skilled, the current world champion, Chris Nicholson. The Parker boat there is Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall from the United States. And Adam Bieshel is the skiff closest to the start boat at the committee boat end. We've got Skilled at the top end, and they're racing, and it looks like to me that Skilled was very early at the top end of the line.
Adam Bieshel's had a good start at the committee boat end, but 25 skiffs doing battle in these very boisterous conditions.
It'll be very interesting here to see if Chris Nicholson is OCS, which is on course side, and this will be a disastrous start for him if that's the case.
Well, they're skilled, Chris Nicholson, with Ed Smythe, who holds dual citizenship, Australia and New Zealand, and they're away to a good start, but will there be a recall, Rob?
Well, there is, we've just been informed there has been an individual recall, so this could be disastrous news if Skilled fails to return back to the start.
Very shifty conditions, and still no sign of the Skilled boat returning to the start as we look at Port Melbourne in the backdrop and the city skyline. Beautiful weather here in Melbourne.
Very choppy conditions. You can see the boats there, the crew's back on the wing to try and get through this chop which builds up the northern end of the bay. The breeze out of the southwest, around 16 to 18 knots. You can see the mainsails blocking inside out as they punch their way up this first lap of race 3. We've got Musto, Paul Brotherton and Neil McDonald still coming right across to this far right-hand side of the course. Neil McDonald there playing the main sheet. Paul just having a bit of a look round.
Pressure to come, shoot ahead.
So they're putting all their eggs in one basket as they go into the tack. Hooking up now, weight goes out on the wing, boat accelerates.
They qualified in 13th place, and they've had a terrific start to the regatta, currently in 5th place after 2 races of this 12-race final series on Port Phillip Bay. So silent night beds here. Great action shot of Dan Slater and Nathan Handley.
Interesting style of Nathan there, keeping his weight, his arms up, just working the main sheet, helping Dan steer the boat through this chop. Breeze around 17 knots as they punch their way up into this sou'wester, which will increase. We've got McLeod, the McKee brothers coming across on port tack. Now they must give way, they have to pull behind silent night beds. Starboard tack has right over port tack.
Silent night beds have had a shocking start to the regatta, a 19th and a 14th in the first 2 races.
And here's the situation of a port tack yacht having to tack, or the other option is to go behind to avoid having a collision. And it looks to me that it's very even. The left-hand side of the course and the right-hand side of the course, I don't think there's much difference. So this is going to be a great convergence at the top mark. That's Dan Slater and Silent Night Beds, the black stripe with Silent Night written down it as they punch their way into the sou'wester. The sea's up around about 1 metre, and this is the left-hand group, skilled with Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe.
Emmett Lassage, sail number 435 there, and 537, also one of the Great Britain crews, Ian Barker and Daniel Phillips.
And here's the McKee brothers, Charlie and Jonathan McKee. Their sails very powerfully set up as they come across from the right-hand side of the course. Breeze around 18 knots.
And that's Tim Robinson and Ian Walker, sail number 559 on starboard tack. Who's going to hit that top mark first? Because that is going to be critical, Rob Brown.
It certainly is. This group here, we've got the McKee brothers and also Phil Airy from New Zealand coming across. You can see how far the boom's out, the sails are east, so they're definitely on a starboard tack lay into the mark, and it really determines whoever can get round this top mark cleanly. That really sets them up for a good position in this race. And there's the top mark. These boats coming in from the left have a slight advantage over the right. We've got Parker Furniture, Morgan Larson coming in on starboard. Now these two boats cannot tack there.
That's Ian Barker and Daniel Phillips.
I think they're okay. They completed their tack. They didn't have to all the course. Now the big decision is when they go for the spinnakers. They're bearing away now as the crews rush in to set the spinnakers for the first time. Dan Slater and Silent Night Beds rounding the mark now.
Phil Airy from New Zealand was round in 3rd place, Morgan Larson 2nd, and Skilled is not far astern either, and really starting to sprout wings.
And here's Jonathan and Charlie McKee. So the left-hand side of the course paid off slightly better. Now this is a dangerous manoeuvre when they've got to pull away in these big seaways. They've got to negotiate all the other craft. There's Charlie there pulling the spinnaker up, and the throttle's down. Charging down this first spinnaker reach, and the very important jibe angle. You can see Chris Nicholson and Skilled jibing out early.
So Ian Barker and Daniel Phillips set the pace in this 3rd race of the World Championships for the International Olympic Class 49er. It's part of the Schneider 49er series, and leading that series coming into this World Championship, Adam Beashel, Australia, as we have an early casualty.
Got a capsize there, a messy jibe, another capsize.
The French are down. C'est la vie.
So that's the race. You can't afford those mistakes at this level of competition. And you notice the aggression of Chris Nicholson there. He was the first one to jibe out. He believes that the right-hand side of the course is favoured. And a massive nosedive.
That's our race leader. Ian Barker and Daniel Phillips have put the nose in, and that is the end of the section. And Chris Nicholson has been presented with the lead on a platter.
Now this is the typical wave formation of Port Phillip Bay. Square backs, no spinnaker ease soon enough. A lot of these guys aren't used to this seaway, Gordon. They're used to flat water, but this guy certainly is. Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe done his time in the 18-foot skiffs. Done plenty of racing here on Port Phillip Bay as they go down through the gate for the first time. Closely followed by Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall, also coming out of the 18-foot skiffs, and look at them go.
But is this a hollow performance for Chris Nicholson? Because we suspect he was over the line early. If that's the case, he will be relegated back to last position.
That certainly would be a disaster for them, and they may not have heard the second gun, but they're not worried about that now. They're worried about sending these boats down here as fast as possible.
Okay, over this next wave.
Boys coming off the boat of Skilled, and another capsize. So it's all happening here. You can see the white caps on Port Phillip Bay. Williamstown off to the right.
Steep seaway at the moment.
See the wave formation there. They're going to have to ease their weight, steering their way. They're going in for a drop now.
Almost running square at the moment as they come into this bottom mark. Morgan Larson in 2nd place, and the Italians in 3rd place at the moment. Francesco Bruni doing a great job.
And Parker has to do 2 jibes here as Chris Nicholson rounds the bottom mark. He has no main sheet in his hand. Not a problem, he just runs in and gets it and gets back out on the job again. Parker, Morgan Larson, Kevin Hall, a little bit sloppy. Jibs come out of the cleat there. Brunis, the Italian crew, Francesco and Gabriele Bruni.
They're looking very composed, aren't they?
Their boat handling skills have improved dramatically over the last 2 to 2 years. Remembering that a lot of the European crews, this is their first experience in high performance skiff sailing, and it just shows you how quickly these good sailors adapt to skiff sailing.
Well, you can come to grief so quickly here in these sorts of conditions, and you can see the bulk of the fleet is out on the left-hand side of the course. Dan Slater actually has made up a lot of ground here, and he's up into about 5th position. So I don't know about sailing lesson, he's doing a grand job for New Zealand.
Well, with that red flag up, he believes that in the incident he was in the right, and it was whether or not the other skiff which was involved has done an alternative penalty, which is 2 360-degree turns. And when you have those red flags up, it's always a problem. You never know that you might end up in the protest room, but that's probably not in his mind at the moment as he punches their way up through this 15, 18 knot southwesterly breeze on Port Phillip Bay. As the Italians work their way up, you can see Gabriel just adjusting his trapeze harness, lowering himself down. They can't get too low on their trapeze because the waves come up and knock them off the wing as they come up towards the top mark for the second time. And it's Chris Nicholson in skill, ably supported by Ed Smythe, as they tack now to the ley line into the top mark. Tacking now, the ley line is the most direct line into the top mark, sailing as close as possible to the breeze. But the Italians, the Brunis, have hit the front, remembering that Skilled, who's rounding the top mark for the last time, will be OCS'd and disqualified. So the Italians, enjoying these rough and bumpy conditions on Port Phillip Bay, have passed Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall, and now are rounding the top mark for the run to the finish. But they've got to keep up. They've got to keep the boat upright.
Francesco Bruni and Gabriele Bruni.
They're going into the spinnaker set. Got to be careful that spinnaker doesn't wash over the side as they accelerate. And second, the Danish team.
Michael Peterson and Niels Floor, who qualified in 17th place. They had a shocker in the first event, but they're in 2nd place now. So this is a great result for the European crews, with Italy first, Denmark second in this final spinnaker run to the finish line.
And the Portuguese crew coming round. So the boats that have went out to that right-hand side have done very well.
Alfonso Domingos and Diego Caola, who scraped into the final series. So the Europeans have come right into their own, remembering that Chris Nicholson will be disqualified for being over the line early.
But there's nothing over until you get across that finishing line. And these wave conditions, the breeze kicking in around 22 knots. So these guys are at maximum power.
Very easy to put the nose in, as we saw.
Having to flag the spinnaker. They're playing it very easy as the bow drives down to the seaway. You've got to deload the boat by easing the spinnaker. Very important to steer around these big swells. And they're easing the spinnaker every wave. They don't want to lose this one.
Clocking 15 knots at the moment. Silent Night Bets back in about 8th position. Andrew Escort, his Kiwi partner, is up ahead of him at the moment in about 5th.
Dan Slater and Nathan have sailed the 18-foot skiffs going into a jibe now. This is a very delicate manoeuvre, but no problems for the Kiwis. A little bit of steering there. Dan has to keep the boat flat. Nathan hooking up and going out. Accelerators down. But here's the race leaders, the Italians, charging down to the finish. Well, this will be a great confidence booster for these guys. As I said, their boat handling skills have improved dramatically over the last 12 months. And what a great sight. They can look behind and say, well, catch us if you can, as the finishing line comes up. They've got to go through the gate. And the seaways, that's the big problem for the crews, to keep that bow out.
Well, they've demonstrated here, the Italians, they're going to be a big chance to win this World Championship. They qualified in 4th position, and the Italians now coming down for a meritorious victory in this 3rd race. Silent Night Beds in 8th position at the moment. Dan Slater, this is a good result for them.
Well, everyone said that the 49er class was going to be dominated by the Australians, and you can just see that the overseas crews have taken to these 49ers. As the Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater drives down through the seaway. But this is going to be a great disappointment, I'm afraid to say, for Chris Nicholson. When he crosses that line, there won't be a gun, and they'll they'll look round and put their hands in the air and ask what happened.
Moment of truth for Chris Nicholson. No gun.
No gun, which is a disaster for them.
The message loud and clear through its absence. And the Italians now to come down in second place across the line, but first overall in this third event because Nicholson has been disqualified.
It's a great disappointment for Chris Nicholson, but there's a lot of racing to go. It's not over yet. As the Italians cross the line, first position in race 3 of the 99 Worlds, the Schneider 49 series. And look at this finish, the Portuguese and the Danish charging for the line. I'll let you call this one, Gordon.
Well, Peterson from Denmark and Domingos from Portugal. There's going to be an eyelash in it. Give it to the Portuguese.
And what a great finish. But where are the Australians? They're supposed to be dominating this class.
Bichel back in 11th place at the moment.
And this is how you don't do it. The spinnaker should have been eased here and the steering should have steered up a little bit and down the mine. Machine is beaten by nature.
Thrills aplenty on Port Phillip Bay. Plenty more to come as well. Italian class prevailing in race 3, and the Danes did hold on for second place, and Phil Airy of New Zealand giving the Kiwis a terrific result with a 4th, a 6th and an 8th in that third event. And look at the Great Britain crews. Rule Britannia, not at the moment, back in 14th, 15th and 16th positions. The Boyd twins didn't start and Skill disqualified. Progressive points, Italy. Bruni is our new race leader. Adam Bichel second. Emmett Lassich third. The Boyds, after their very good start, although they didn't commence that last race, holding down 4th place. And the Kiwis, well, they haven't had a great regatta so far, but that last race has improved their prospects. This week's 49er Profile is brought to you by UCMS, leaders in customer management solutions. The team of Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen from Finland. As you would expect, both Risto and Jukka have long sailing histories, including time in lasers and 470s. But despite some great results this summer, they feel they still have a way to go when it comes to mastering the 49er.
The Australians, for example, they are better, a little bit better in everything. So it just needs more training and sailing. And
we have now been sailing this 49er just 18 months, and earlier we used to sail lasers and 470s far away from this kind of fast dinghy boat, so it's better all the time. So just wait and see one more year. So the main goal is to achieve a country spot for the Olympics for Finland. Like Finland has not qualified as a country yet, so placing in the coal fleet would almost guarantee the country spot. So that's the first goal, and then we'll see how good we can finish the road. Not at calm at all. I'm really on fire all the time. So I'm quite calm. He's quite calm. Just the opposite of me, and I get really nervous. Great over here. So everyone is kind and really helps us. So nice to be here.
Because a 49er is only a two-handed boat, we must do things to make it more automated. One of the big areas is the spinnaker. This is the spinnaker pole. It's made of carbon fibre. It's a round tube. It comes out about 2 metres in the hoisting process, and the pulling of the spinnaker halyard with one string brings the pole out.
This week's Olympic class profile is Australia's newest world champions, John Forbes and Darren Bundock of the Tornado class.
We won it quite convincingly in the end. Going to the final day, it was very close between us and the German team. It all came down to the final race, which was very close.
We had the Sydney Harbour Regatta here in September, which is like the Olympics 2 years before, and we won that. We then went to Brazil and won the South American Championships, and the week later won the World Championships. So we've had 3 good wins in a row now, and the European guys are really starting to stand up and have a look. Well, I've been with Darren now since beginning of '95, so a bit over 4 years, and that's going great. It's been a good thing. It took us a little while to get compatible, but we did. In the '96 Worlds, we came third, so we're very happy with that. And then I think this is just a combination of 4 years of good work, and it's all starting to pay off.
I think if you sail full time, you're probably going to burn out.
Well, I went to the '92 Olympics and got a bronze medal there, so I know what it's like, and certainly want to be part of it again. That's the aim, and always has been the aim. We've also had a lot of goals along the way, which we've already achieved. One of them was winning the Worlds together, and we've done that. I also wanted to be the first to win the World Championship 3 times, the first ever to do that. We've already achieved a lot of those personal goals, with the final one just being the Sydney Olympics.
So we move on to race 4, and if anything, the conditions even fresher. 18 to 20 knots here, and the breeze coming in from the southwest.
And the seaway hasn't got any smaller either, Gordon. As the boats lined up, now Chris Nicholson was disqualified in the previous race, so he'll be a little bit tentative at this start, but it's a new race, a new set of situations. Adam Beashall in the middle of the line as they go now. Start time.
Well, the Australians have had quite a good start there, Adam Beashall, but over on that left-hand side of the course, a couple of boats are jumping out of the water. There's Silent Night Beds, and the Portuguese, Domingos, sail number 429, is going to be in trouble early on. 444 there is Adam Beashall, and 435 from Australia is Emmett Lassie.
A great start from Emmett and Ewan McNichol, and you'll see the boats clearing their air. You'll see a number of boats tacking and coming out to this right-hand side. The McKees and Boyds have had bad starts. They're dipping behind the starboard tack boats off the start line. We've got the Boyds at the middle of the line. 435 is Emmett Lassage and Ewan McNichol. The French crew of Mark Ordino. That's 405. And Parker, USA, 208, Morgan Larson.
537 is Ian Barker and Daniel Phillips. And 559, another one of the Great Britain crews, Tim Robinson and Ian Walker there on the rights.
Look at the seaway, Gordon, building up now. We've got a metre swell with a wind wave on top. So it's very difficult conditions for the crews. Makes steering very difficult.
Well, treacherous is what you're saying, and even dangerous, particularly when these skiffs are in close quarters.
This is the French crew, Mark Ordino, going into attack now. As the boat accelerates, they need to wait out in the end of the wings to accelerate. Now we've got the Italians, Bruni's coming now. They're tacking now. They're on starboard tack. We've got Paul Brotherton coming across on port tack. They've got to bear away. This is going to be very close. There's a collision. Oh, that's a nasty crash. Oh, that's disastrous for the Italians. But geez, Neil MacDonald, he looked like he got hurt there in that collision. Got catapulted off the wing. That's a wonder he's not hurt. But the Italians were on starboard tack. Now let's go. This is the Italians. They've tacked, and the English crew coming in. Neil MacDonald hitting the mast on the side stay. I'd say Neil MacDonald's been hurt there.
Well, I think we must have joned them, but that was a collision midships on the Italians. They were in the right, so they're certainly going to get redress and probably average points, which is good news for them because they've done very well in the regatta so far.
And here we are back with the race. Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater and Nathan Hanley. Neil MacDonald there on the centreboard, so he's okay. Probably not 100%, but he'll be licking his wounds at the moment.
Dented Pride as well.
And here we've got the Ukrainian crew coming across. It's certainly different conditions what they'd experienced in the Ukraine.
Rodion Luka and Rogli Leonchuk, who came through with a real upset victory in the first race.
They certainly have done well and unexpected. You know, we didn't think they'd even make the gold fleet, and they've already won a race in this series as they tack, and also Chris Nicholson in skilled tacks what they believe to be on the ley line to the top mark for the first time.
And sail number 427 is Santiago Lopez from Spain, closest, and Phil Airy of New Zealand. sail number 508 is also doing well.
And Chris Nicholson won't be happy with that because Bill Airy has tacked right into position, which will put all the disturbed air back onto their sails. So the world champion is struggling in this series.
Well, he's back in about 10th or 11th at the moment, and those boats coming across from the left-hand side are going to cross those on the right-hand side.
So there is wind shifts here. We're picking up probably 5 to 10 degree wind shifts. Not very regular. It's the normal sea breeze here in Port Phillip Bay. But the wave conditions just makes it very difficult. You can see Phil Airy over a monstrous sea. Look at this one. He's in the gear, crashing through it, and that's Adam Beechel and Teague Sislowski in Kodak Express punching their way up through what enormous seas for these 49er craft. This is a Spanish crew. Great to see them in this race, and the right-hand side looks pretty good to me at this time. Adam Beechel. Maybe this is where he starts to make his charge on the World Championship.
Well, he had a 10th, a 5th and a 5th, and at the moment it's really going to have to wait and see with those boats coming across from the left-hand side.
This is the most critical part of the race as they converge on the top mark for the first time. If you can get round in that leading group, get a spinnaker on and away, that really sets you up for a good result. If you're back in the mob, that's nearly impossible to get through this fleet.
Morgan Larson, I think, is looking pretty good at the moment. He is racing in company with Ian Barker and Daniel Phillips from Great Britain, and they're coming across on port tack from the left-hand side of the course, and they appear to have these boats covered at the moment as we converge on the top mark.
Remembering these boats have right-of-way coming in on starboard tack, and the 2 boat length circle. There's the top mark at the top right-hand corner of the screen.
Taking it back.
So the left-hand boats have done slightly better, but Adam Beechel's going to be well placed here. He's going to be in the top 3 or 4. Dan Slater and Simon Ibed's tacking to go to the mark now. But you're right, Morgan Larson coming in with that black sail design is going to be 2nd or 3rd round this top mark as he tacks now. That's Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall. Silent Night Beds will roll over the top, probably round in 3rd position, but the leader is the German crew, 537.
No, it's Ian Barker and Daniel Phillips. Oh, not again. We saw it in the previous race, and after being in the lead and hitting the front, they have come a cropper.
So first, Morgan Larson from the United States. 2nd, very close between. Here we go to the replay, and you see the bow just buried down. They've let the main sheet go. That's the problem. The main sheet's been let go, and he could not steer up down the mine.
Well, they must have felt they were water skiing barefoot as they were dragged along there. But Morgan Larson from the United States, he has taken over the lead with his crack forward hand, Kevin Hall. They qualified in 8th place. They've had a 14th, a 7th and a 9th.
And this is the difficulty, getting these spinnakers out without catching in the water. We've got Skilled and the Boyd brothers, and the Danes have got trouble. I spoke about, there's a spinnaker over the side. It's like a big handbrake. They're in lots of trouble.
Canadians going straight past there. Trevor and Bettina Bayliss, and Adam Beechel coming straight down the middle of the course.
Bill Airy, the New Zealanders, that's a very sloppy jibe. Conditions are taking over.
Nicorette, David Mann and Grant Rollison. Haven't seen a lot of them, but we've seen a lot of Morgan Larson. He's setting the pace now in race 4 of this 12-race final series.
So as you go over the top of a wave, if there's no back to it, you've got to ease the spinnaker and steer up so the bow doesn't bury into the following sea. And Dan Slater, the black spinnaker, charging down. The Kiwis love the fresh conditions. And there's Adam Beechel and Teague. Waves probably 1 boat length apart, so you go up over the top of the wave. You'll probably see the spinnaker eased, and you have to steer up. Now watch this one over the top of the wave, steering up, keep the boat dead flat. No problems for Dan Slater and Nathan Hanley as they charge down this reach. They have to go through the gate. Dan Slater's very high on his trapeze wire, and that's to keep himself out of the water and so he can get good vision to the wave ahead.
Well, a real adrenaline rush for the Kiwis at the moment. They're into 2nd place. Adam Beechel, the yellow spinnaker, in 3rd place. And bottom middle, we have Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall from the United States in 1st. Looking for a morale-boosting win here after a slow start to the finals.
Well, Chris Nicholson believes that Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall are the ones to beat for the gold medal in 2000. But you've got to get there first. And a day like today is very nerve-wracking because anything can happen when you're trying to control your boat through this seaway.
Well, I think Adam Bieshel
and look at the Kiwis. I spoke about steering up. Look at that. They've lost it.
Man overboard.
Well, we spoke too soon. We thought the Kiwis could handle this, but Port Phillip Bay 1, New Zealand 0. And down they go. The spinnaker not eased quick enough. Rudder pops out. No way of saving that. And then the crew gets catapulted, and you've got to avoid hitting the sails because you go straight through them.
And there's more drama here. There's Adam Bieshel, the yellow spinnaker, having real problems. Ordino of France. And the Aussies are in third place, but certainly some very anxious moments there.
And Adam Bieshel has capsized. What a disaster for them, as Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall already around the bottom mark, as now the vital spinnaker drop. Looks like they're heading off towards the left-hand side, so second position is Marc Ordino from France.
Tim Robinson and Ian Walker of Great Britain are there, and there is Nicorette. Morgan Larson from the United States, Marc Ordino of France, and then in third place at the moment, the Great Britain crew, Tim Robinson and Ian Walker, and Nicorette, David Mann and Grant Rollison in fourth place.
But you've got to hand it to Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall. They're just doing a great job. You can see Kevin there leaning into it. They've got their legs interlocked, nice airflow over the two bodies. As Marc Ordino, France, 405, charges over this big seaway. You can see a lot of steering going on there to keep the boat upright and to keep maximum speed on.
Well, Ordino looks as though he's going to have his best finish, providing he can stay upright. He qualified in ninth place, but he's been disappointing, really. He had a 20th in the previous event, and he needs a high placing here to really mount his challenge.
And Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall have just tacked, so they aren't laying the top mark. As we get back to the Scandinavian team from Norway, Christopher Sundby, Vegard Amhoff.
Morgan Larson, again, dominating this race. They've really been in command from the start, and he's really just covering the fleet, and he's opened up a huge lead over his rivals here in this fourth race of the series.
Really is safety first, with a short distance to go to the top mark for the last time. It really is boat preservation. Keep the boat upright, keep the mast pointing in the air, but you can't back off in this high-performance skiff. You've got to have the pedal down, and this is where the hours of training come in to really make sure that you're pushing the boat as hard as possible. You can't really back off. That's a silly statement. You've got to keep sending these boats as hard as they can possibly go.
So how's it shaping at the moment? The Australians are hanging in there. Chris Nicholson, this is a moment of truth for him. He really needs to make up ground. Morgan Larson has really made a statement here, hasn't he, Rob?
Well, he's been hot on the heels of, he's been in contention over the last 12 months. There's been nothing in it. They've had a great battle, Chris Nicholson and Morgan, and it really comes down to being consistent, and we're not seeing that from the Australians thus far in this series.
Well, we saw the Aussies go over, Adam Bieshel. They appeared to get caught up with one of the Great Britain crews and capsized, and they're going to have to recover. But Morgan Larson is going to come through, barring accidents now, for his first win of this series.
They look pretty relaxed here on board. They know they've got the race in the bag. They're just watching their boat going through the waves. Kevin Hall's had a lot of experience, sailed a lot of miles with Morgan, and there's the distance. They've got a 200-metre lead as they're charging out towards this right-hand side of the course. They'll be tacking very shortly to make a lay into the top mark for the last time, but look at the white caps, look at the waves rolling down Port Phillip Bay.
So this has been a great performance by Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall of the United States.
They spent a bit of time in the 18-foot skiffs. They sailed 2 seasons out here, and that really has put them in good stead for this craft. They believe that the 18-footer is the hardest boat to sail, and it certainly would bridge the gap between the boats they're sailing in America and now the Olympic class of 49er.
Well, watching them in the Schneider 49er series, we saw the regattas in Brisbane and Sydney. They've been very consistent. They're very professional and very composed. They had a collision on Sydney Harbour. They got average points there. and really going into that regatta at Sydney Harbour in big regattas, they hadn't been further back than 4th or 5th place.
There's the top mark, Gordon. The big bear away for the last time. Got to keep the bow out. You'll see them drifting down towards the back of the wing. You can see the headsail, the front sail very much these. Now, what you're looking for a flat section of water, going down a trough now. Yeah. But that's a good bear away and nice and safe. No mistakes here, boys. Get that spinnaker up. 1 or 2 jives through the gate, down to the finish, and the race is yours. But we've seen on many occasions that is easier said than done.
Well, concentration's so important now. The skipper and his crew. It was a conservative rounding, but they have such a huge lead, as you can see, that they don't want any mistakes here. They can't afford one little slip up.
See the spinnaker being eased there when you're running up the back of the seaway. There's the French crew, Mark Woodenow, coming around. No problems there with the bear away.
We saw Adam Bieshel going to windward. They're in about 9th position at the moment after a capsize, so that's a good recovery. Check the order then. Morgan Larson, United States in 1st place. Mark Ordonneau of France. Tim Robinson and Ian Walker have sailed a terrific race in 3rd place. Emmett Lassage, Australia, the 2nd red spinnaker behind that red spinnaker of Robinson, and then the Budgeons of Great Britain. So the Great Britain crews have had a good result here in this 4th event, but Morgan Larson steaming down to the finish.
They're not keen to pull that spinnaker on, Gordon. Big waves, a lot of breeze. They're in conservative mode here, if you can do so. But going into the jibe now, the French crew, a little bit tricky there, could have lost it. Very difficult jibing, but they're okay. The French away.
Marc Ordonneau and Julien Ferranier.
Robinson going to the jibe. They've lost it. They haven't done it at all the world. And Tim Robinson, what a disaster. Probably 200 metres from the finishing line, and down the mine they go.
Well, that is just a heartbreak for Robinson and Walker.
Boat turned very quickly there. The crew weight couldn't get out on the wing quick enough. So a bit of steering error there by the English crew.
They were in 3rd place, and that's handed the opening now for Emmett Lassage of Australia. The Budgeons are in 4th.
Here they go over the waves. Probably reaching up speeds around 14, 15 knots. But the seaway, every now and again, just bumps up the wave to a certain extent. They've got to ease the spinnaker off. You can see how far they're down the back of the wing, trying to keep that bow out. Looks like Kevin's lost his hat. So they're probably doing 18 to 20 knots.
So, Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall. Last rights as far as they're concerned for the remainder of the fleet.
Their eyes are pinned on the seaway. The breeze is fairly consistent. You can see them flagging the spinnaker here. That's just to keep the bow out. Dexterity, intuition, all the senses are being used to their maximum to keep these boats going as fast as possible. Going into the jibe now, you can see Kevin Hall. Morgan's still out at the end of the wing. Looks like they're going to drop the spinnaker. They know they've got the race won, so they're going to do a very conservative rounding here. Going into the jibe, they're very slow indeed.
We've seen a lot of skiffs capsize in that situation near the station pier, so a very wise decision by Morgan Larson. Percentage sailing, and he'll come down for a stunning victory in these fresh, treacherous conditions.
Sometimes that can be more dangerous when the boat slows down in the seaway. You're better to keep the spinnaker up. But who am I to say? These guys have done a great job sailing these conditions, and a great, well-earned victory. The United States first.
There's the gun for Morgan Larson. Marc Ordonneau currently in 2nd place. Emmett Lassage throwing down a challenge to him. But the French are going to come across with the blue spinnaker in 2nd place. Emmett Lassage is holding down 3rd ahead of the Budgeons in this 4th event. So
where are the Australians, Gordon?
Well, looking back at the Australians, Adam Bieshel is back in about 9th place at the moment.
Here's Emmett Lassage. Here's the first Australian crew. Emmett Lassage and Ewan McNichol. They're dropping their spinnaker too. Now, you notice they jibe with the spinnaker up and then drop their spinnaker. That is the correct manoeuvre, I believe.
There's the black spinnaker of the Budgeons, and looking further up the course, I can see Chris Nicholson in 6th place. So that's a good effort by him. That's a consolidation after the disaster in the previous event.
But he is struggling. You'd have to say that Chris Nicholson would be concerned. He hasn't had a place yet in this series. So I think there's a lot of pressure on them. and these conditions are certainly making it difficult for all the crews.
And there the Budgeons across the line in 4th position behind Emmett Lasich of Australia. And just arriving now, the Spaniards, Santiago Lopez and Xavier de la Plaza. Ole!
A great result for the Spanish. Tremendous to see them doing so well.
And they're skilled across the line in 6th place.
And the Norwegian crew, 608, Christopher Sundby and Vergaard Emhoff. Great result. Back to the replay of this collision between the English and the Italians, and how Neil MacDonald didn't get seriously hurt here, I'll never know. Average points awarded to the Italians.
Well, he looked as though he was on the pommel horse. But a great victory there to Morgan Larson, Mark Ordino in 2nd place, Emmett Lasich 3rd, and then sail number 439, the Budgeons, coming in ahead of Lopez. The McKee brothers, they have been disappointing, finishing 12th in race 4 of the World Championship Series, and a lot of those European crews finding the going very tough. Progressive points, yes, there was redress for the Bruni brothers, so they maintain the overall series lead. Emmett Lasich in 2nd place, Adam Bichel in 3rd place, Morgan Larson and also skilled Chris Nicholson, the world champion, equal 4th. But certainly the European crews have found the going tough. Not so Morgan Larson.
It gets pretty tough out there. I think 2 or 3 more knots and there's no way we would really be able to race. So it was right on the edge. A bunch of the competitors have been nicknaming that course out there Cape Horn, and it's a little bit like it out there sometimes, especially in the 49er.
Yes, you'd think it was Cape Horn when you look at this carnage, Rob Brown.
Men and machine against nature, and nature certainly has taken its course. A lot of damage to the skiffs, but they'll be out there for the next race.
Well, boisterous conditions predicted for our next series of this World Championship. We'll see you next time.